I hereby call the September 28th meeting of the Council of the City of Lancaster to order. As you are willing, would you please join me in rising for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic that stands under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. With liberty and justice for all. Okay, quick standard announcements. Of course, you are being recorded as the meeting is live streamed, and please silence your cell phones. We're going to make an exception for walkie-talkies. If there's a fire, please go save someone. And thank you for being here, by the way, gentlemen. All right, Mr. Harris, would you please call the roll of members?
Yes, Mr. President. Mr. Arroyo.
Here.
Ms. Baquet.
Here.
Ms. Craig.
Here.
Ms. Diaz.
Here.
Mr. Garcia Molina. Mr. Soto. And President Smith-Waddell.
Here. Councilors Garcia Molino and Soto are excused this evening. Next, we have the minutes for September 14th and September 21st, 2021. I think we can go ahead and take those together, but I'll hear a motion.
Motion to approve both.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Council comments on the minutes? Hearing none, Mr. Harris?
Mr. Arroyo.
Aye.
Ms. Craig.
Aye.
Ms. Diaz.
Aye.
And President Smith-Waddell.
Aye.
I'm sorry, I missed Ms. Craig, didn't I?
You missed me.
Oh, I'm sorry. Ms. Baquet.
Aye.
All right. Excellent. Proclamations, honors, awards, and resolutions of recognition.
We had none tonight, Mr. President.
All right. That brings us to our first public comment period, reserved for those persons who have contacted the city clerk prior to the meeting. Do we have any tonight, Mr. Harris?
We do not, Mr. President.
Thank you, sir. That brings us then to reports requested by council. What do we have, Mr. Harris?
The first tonight is the fire station construction update.
All right. Chief, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Council. We have a small slide deck of, I think, 8 slides that we'll go over. Please, at any time, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. We also have members of the executive board from 319 here this evening, if you have any questions for them as well, and the former president, Captain Kevin Ressler, who was part of this process when we started the journey back in September of 2018. So a little over 3 years ago, Mayor Sriracha and I made a commitment to our men and women of the Fire Bureau that improving their workspace would be a top priority. We have done that and so much more. Next slide, please.
Sorry, I'm bringing that up now. What was that? All right. Actually, that's the other one. Yeah. No. Okay. got slideshow from the beginning. There we go. Sorry.
Very good. Thank you. You can go to the next. Okay. So here we're showcasing what we had to where we're at today. So the old station was about 6,000 square feet, as you can see on the top right-hand corner. Today's station is roughly 18,000 square feet. We are now providing more functional space inside and out, maximizing the full footprint that was city-owned property. We recognized early on these facilities will be built to last. Today's design is intentionally to maximize the workflow, unlike in the years past, including our 50-year-old fire stations, when the design was based upon a garage to house a fire truck. The roof and patio of the new station have a green space to assist with stormwater collection. It's estimated we'll be able to collect about 375,000 gallons of rainwater each year with this design. Next slide, please. You will see the apron space has improved with the design and the setback. So you can see in your top right-hand corner of what the old apron was. So you can see the ladder truck actually is already in the street, and they're still also in the station. You'll see the station clearance, they only had about a ½ an inch clearance. We now have 14-foot high doors you can see below, and a large ramp space for the apparatus. During the design phase, staff input was used to produce a final layout and the needs. Also, during the design process, early on, we conducted town halls at each station for the community to provide input and feedback during our design process. Currently, we are working with multiple partners to bring public art to our new facilities. More to come on that from our neighborhood engagement team in the months ahead. As we built these stations for the future, you can see the apparatus bay space. That space is built for expansion. There's always the possibility of fire-based EMS or asking our third-party EMS providers if they want to come into our station and run out of there. Also in this photo, you'll see the apparatus floor, and that floor is heated. Also on the first floor of the facility that many of you will see this weekend, including from the apparatus bay, we also have a hose tower, a museum for making sure we carry on the traditions and legacies, and also just the artifacts of the Fire Bureau. We also have the watch room and multiple storage facilities. Next slide, please. On the mezzanine level of the station, we finally have a dedicated training room. It was always a challenge to keep staff's attention in the old stations during training because of them being held in the kitchen and TV room. This space is now open for other departments of the city to hold their training and meetings as well. We have already held a number of trainings with outside instructors with great success in this training environment. In addition, on the mezzanine is now the fire headquarters. We are now out of City Hall. And we also have improved work centers for our employees to be able to do their work on computers and have dedicated county IT network access. Next slide, please. On the second floor of the new stations, we have a large kitchen and day room with coffee bar. Also indoor recreation space with TV, recliners, and games. The patio provides for a large outdoor open air space with Blackstone grill, backyard games, and seating. Our fitness room on the second floor is equipped by the Lancaster City Fire Foundation with a donation of $15,000 for state-of-the-art gym equipment. And finally, our dormitories have improved. We now have private and semi-private dormitories, unlike the old stations where the dorms were just one large open room with no privacy. Next slide. And now we have our other station currently under construction at 333 East King, which will be identical to the one on West King. The only exception would be the mezzanine level. East King will end up being a battalion chief's office and dormitory, and also the fire marshal's office. So once we have completion there, tentative for June of '22, our fire marshals will be out of City Hall and also back into the fire stations. Next slide, please. And again, just to our community, our city council members for approval, we just thank you so much for what you have done for us over these 3.5 years to be able to move forward and give our staff the equipment that they need to really do the job well. We just truly appreciate everything you've done for us. And we want to remind everybody that this Sunday from 10 to 2 is our open house dedication and ribbon cutting at 11 a.m. of the new facility at 425 West King Street. And everyone in our community is invited to that event and meet our staff. And in addition, National Fire Prevention Week is October 3 through 9. And this year's message is learn the sounds of fire safety. So at this time, council, if there's any questions, I'd be happy to address them for you. And again, we also have members of the union executive board here.
Councilors?
Thank you, Chief Little. A question on the East King Street construction. We had some question before we got started about what we might find on that site, but it seems like it's proceeding quickly. Can you just address if there's been any issues with that construction, or are we on time?
Yeah, according to CH&E, the general contractor, we are on time with East King Street and had no issues. Our issue was our neighboring property that we had to do some work to before we could start the construction for East King, but we are on schedule now.
Thank you, Chief. Gentlemen, did you have anything you'd like to say to council while you're here? If you're good, we're good. You don't have to. Just all right, great. Thank you for what you do, and thank you for the update, Chief. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, and now I believe we have an update on the strategic plan from Mayor Sirachi.
New slide deck. Okay, good evening, council, and to members of the public and staff that are here. Thank you very much for being here. We are here to give an update. I'm here to give an update about the work that we've been doing over these last several months that is focused on building a stronger and more equitable Lancaster block by block. Next slide. Tonight, I want to talk with you about our administration strategic plan for 22 to 25. This is the first time we're sharing it publicly, and we're going to be continuing to refine this, adding strategies, activities, and metrics over the next several months. But we wanted to provide all of council an overview of the strategic pillars and the goals that we have set before us. And we plan to have a final version by early 2022. But before we dig into the new goals, I'd like to start with a quick look back at the foundations for this work, which is the work that we've been part of for the last 4 years in partnership with council. And these are the building blocks of the City of Lancaster government that have gotten us to this plan. So next slide. So becoming a welcoming city, this process literally started on my first day in office, and we are really proud to be named officially a welcoming city. Next slide. We've also made progress in addressing housing, both adding more overall units than we've seen in a generation, with now more than 1,700 in the pipeline, and negotiating the largest investment in affordable housing in 50 years. Next slide. The everyday business of providing essential services to a vibrant city, doing it consistently and in line with our core values. Next slide. Responding to COVID without the support of a county health department. We doubled down to ensure our residents were aware of risks and resources. We stood up a contact tracing effort that expanded countywide and maintained essential services without interruption for the past 18+ months. Next slide. You've just heard about the new fire station. We've built the first new fire station in more than 50 years and invested in our apparatus, which you can see right outside of our doors tonight, to ensure the health and safety of our firefighters and the response times we continue to maintain. Next slide. And we've been working to build trust between the police and community they serve, appointing a new police chief to lead that work during a historic year. Next slide. We wrote the city's first climate action plan and are putting that to work. Next slide. We're advancing major investments in our water system infrastructure, including a new water tower and replacing a portion of our 42-inch main. There is so much, underscore so much more that needs to be done, thanks to decades of underfunding related to our water and sewer infrastructure. And we are taking it bit by bit. We are looking for increased and new opportunities with federal funding and state funding that are coming down the pike, we hope. And we are continuing to work to keep our water rates on par or lower than the average rates across the county. Next slide. But more than anything, I am proudest of the fact that we've done more to advance people-centered governance than any other Lancaster City administration before us. We've invested in 2 police social workers, a housing social worker, and a downtown outreach worker to support those experiencing homelessness or facing drug and alcohol issues or mental health issues on our streets. This people-centered approach is also exemplified through engagement with our neighborhoods and residents in an unprecedented way as the City of Lancaster government. Together, we have prioritized our neighborhoods and the voices of our residents throughout our city, and we have learned a lot in the process. Next. We've heard the priorities and voices of our residents, and those concerns have been elevated and included in this plan. I just want to give a shout out to Engage Lancaster, which, you know, COVID brought some silver linings, and we're continuing to advance some of the efforts to provide more opportunities to digitally engage with the city and provide more resources online. As we move through this coming year, there'll be a lot more to share related to that. Next slide. Our 4 pillars build from where we've come. These should look somewhat familiar to you. Strong neighborhoods remains a top focus. Safe streets has expanded to safe places. Secure incomes has expanded to sustainable economy. And the foundation of it all remains sound government. Next slide. Strong neighborhoods. So we have 3 goals related to strong neighborhoods. And next slide. And the first is related to neighborhood engagement. We are going to build off of what we've done over the past 4 years and expand it to reach even more city residents. Next slide. Housing quality and diverse housing supply. This is a key change. We've heard from residents say again and again that housing quality and affordability is their priority. At the first council meeting in October, October the 12th, Chris Delfs, Director of Community Planning and Economic Development, will be bringing top-line findings from a recent study by the Center for Regional Analysis and a draft interim housing plan highlighting our priorities. This will spell out in greater detail how we plan to leverage our tools, prioritize our investments and partnerships to achieve meaningful progress in the fight for affordable housing. Based on initial feedback from the Engage project on ARPA, we also expect to bring our first affordable related housing asks related to ARPA to you in October. And so I just want to underscore that this is an interim housing plan. We need to walk and chew gum as it relates to the comprehensive plan, which is happening simultaneously, which brings me to the next slide, which is all about our comp plan. As you know, we're well into this process of updating the city's first comprehensive plan since 1993. This will be completed in 2022 and will set a vision, 20-year vision, and long-term land use and policy recommendations. I am proud of how we are pursuing this. I appreciate the leadership within community planning and economic development under Chris, and it's essential that we continue to engage the community to influence this plan for our collective future. This plan will guide the work of our planning bureau, our capital planning efforts, our parks planning, and our work with anyone developing land in the city for all of those 20 years. Next slide. So the second pillar is around safe places, and this pillar has 4 goals. Next slide. So, trust and legitimacy. This is a notable addition to the plan after a very historic year. This is the primary focus for our police bureau and all public-facing city employees. We must facilitate these community bonds to build trust and legitimacy. Next slide. We also need to talk about readiness and response. And we've talked about the foundation of a strong city being public safety, and the readiness and response of our first responders is essential to meet that goal. Next slide. Safe places are also about streets and public places, the public assets that belong to all of us, assets that can create safety and foster a greater sense of place and community are essential in this plan. Next slide. And finally, in safe places, a focus on traffic safety. We've made progress over the past 4 years and want to expand that work to reach a true vision zero, zero traffic deaths or severe injuries through proactive enforcement, education, and data-informed design. And that brings us to our third goal, which is sustainable economy. This one has 2 big goals. And I'm just going to read this because I think it bears underscoring, which is the foundation of a strong community is sustainable and equitable economy that works for all residents. Residents have access to family-sustaining jobs, and the city contains an array of thriving local businesses that reflect the diversity of our community. Next slide. And so the economy is literally being reshaped before our eyes. And while we are finally seeing wage rates increase, meaningful support from the federal government in the way of child tax credits and other supports, there is much more to do to ensure our families' success in the city of Lancaster. And we need to continue to do that work alongside our partners to be able to move the needle in this post-COVID world, or maybe not post-COVID quite yet. ARPA provides a unique opportunity, and we are looking forward to bringing you opportunities to lean into this space in early 2022. Next slide. A thriving local economy. Wow, well, maybe I'll speak for myself. I had really high expectations for our economy and the restart of our economy in June, and I was pretty hopeful that we were going to get there by this fall. But those efforts have been thwarted by Delta. And supporting a thriving local economy is going to require us to reinvigorate and build new tools and supports for our small business. And so you may know that the Lancaster Office of Promotion is now under the auspices of our Office of Neighborhood Engagement. We're going to be relaunching the Visitor Center as the Welcome Center to highlight opportunities and attract a wider base of customers. We're also talking about really focusing on buy local in a refreshed way because we know how much money leaves the city. We know that we can attract more resources to the city for all of the offerings that our city has. And so we look forward to discussing this with you as we move into early 22 and as we continue to cultivate and develop some proposals to bring forward. Next slide. And last but not least is sound government, which is the foundation for all of this work. And there are 5 goals related to this. Next slide. A culture of inclusion in public service. You've heard the Peter Drucker quote that culture eats strategy for breakfast. Investing in the culture of the city workforce is key to achieving the goals that we have laid out. We've talked about this throughout the past year, and I'm grateful for Sharon Allen-Spann. Thank you for being here, Sharon, and her leadership, as well as the leadership of the executive leadership team to support this primary goal. Next slide. As noted before, engagement will continue to be a hallmark of our approach to governance. I'm proud that local government is accessible, transparent, and conversational. Is it easy? Absolutely not. But we shouldn't expect anything less from our government, and that's what we are. And we have continued to learn and grow through the process of doing civic engagement. And we should all be proud of the work that we're doing and the accessibility and the ways in which we are connecting with our neighbors. We have all done this work, and I really appreciate the ways in which council has supported it as well. Next slide. Effective law and policy. Okay, so this is where the wonky nerdiness comes out a little strong in this plan, but it may be one of the most transformative goals in the plan. And under the leadership of our city solicitor, we are going to be systematically reviewing our laws, policies, and procedures and to update them to ensure that they serve their intended purpose. And so that's going to take some time, so that's a reminder that this is a 4-year plan. Next slide. Climate resilience. Last but certainly not least is a commitment to implement innovative strategies within our own operations and to influence the decisions of those around us to address the impacts of climate change that are already disproportionately impacting our operations. Hurricane Ida, torrential downpours, which is one of the key climate change impacts in Lancaster that is being projected for our future. We are, obviously, that is hurting us in terms of our combined sewer overflows. It's also risking our public utility infrastructure and potentially affecting our lowest income residents who are most vulnerable, who have properties along the river. And I think specifically of Broad Street and Franklin Terrace. So next slide. So in closing, our vision is to build a stronger and more equitable Lancaster block by block, and the goals that are outlined in the strategic plan are key for that work. So at the next council meeting, as I mentioned, on October 12th, you will be hearing more about the city's interim housing plan. That's another building block. You will also We'll be making priorities and decisions about the American Rescue Plan. That's another building block, and that's coming, first of that is coming to you late in October. And all the while, we're deep into engagement around the city's first comp plan since 1993, the building blocks for the next 20 years of civic life in the city of Lancaster. And with that, I will conclude and thank you, Council, for allowing me to provide a brief update about where we are related to our strategic plan. There are things in here that may look familiar, and there are things that are new that reflect the new world that we are in. And we look forward to partnering with you and carrying out these goals. And thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Before we move along, are there any council comments?
If I may, if no one else has questions, I'd like to ask a question to the mayor.
Of course, Councilor Diaz, go ahead.
I received a phone call related to the lead program, and it seems that one of the contractors went out, did the renovation, and the resident hired a local contractor to go in and test again, and there's still lead in the house. So I'm not sure what the process is. And I know that these contractors are not affiliated or hired from the city, like they're not employees of the city. Can you tell me what other things, or how should I direct that resident?
So you can direct that resident to Rebecca, who's the deputy director that's overseeing our lead initiative. And if you would please just send me an email with the contact information, I can forward that along to Rebecca.
Great. Thank you so much, Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councilor Diaz. Excellent. We will move then to interim reports of committees of council.
We have none tonight, Mr. President.
Thank you. Which brings us to our rather lengthy legislative agenda. We have items from the Heritage Conservation District. Hey, good evening, gentlemen. Thanks again for being here.
Thank you.
Mr. Harris.
Yes, Mr. President. Considering the following application and recommendation from the Historical Commission for improvements to a property within the Heritage Conservation District, we have one tonight, Todd Wolf and Chatel Peda, owners of 452 Race Avenue, proposed construction of a new two-story addition to the house's Race Avenue facade and continuing along the West James Street north elevation. And that application was recommended for approval by the Historical Commission.
Motion to approve?
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. This one seems pretty straightforward. Any council comments? Any comments from the public? Hearing none, Mr. Harris.
Mr. Arroyo.
Aye.
Ms. Beke?
Aye.
Ms. Craig?
Aye.
Ms. Diaz?
Aye.
And President Smith-Waddell.
Aye. All right, that brings us to our second public comment period, which is open for items not previously addressed on the agenda. Duration of comments is, of course, limited to 3 minutes. If anybody would like to. Well, all right then. That brings us to the report of the mayor. Mayor Sarachi?
No additional report tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. I have no report tonight. Council comments.
I just have one item, actually. I just want to make sure that meeting will be scheduled, the audit presentation.
It will be scheduled. Last I heard, we were looking at doing it prior to the meeting on October 12th.
Terrific. Just to put that out there, that before our next regular council meeting on October 12th, there will be a special meeting of the Finance Committee to hear the audit results from 2020.
Excellent, thank you. And to be clear, we do not yet have a date for that meeting?
As far as I know, it's not set yet.
Okay,
It will be October 12th.
okay, so
It's
immediately prior.
prior to that regular meeting.
Okay, thank you.
So apparently it is set.
Any other council comments?
I have a comment. I just want to take a moment, thank Chief Little for her presentation tonight, and look forward to the dedication on Sunday.
Yay.
Actually, is this everybody? Oh, we're missing Steve, darn. No, it was just, anyway, hi ELT, thanks for what you do. We're good?
Good.
I'll have a motion to adjourn then.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.